Hey guys, it's time to build our burger. So we're going to start from scratch here on Photopea. You're just going to make a new project. And the orientation of your project is going to be in a landscape mode. So first I'm going to change this to inches and I want it to be an 8 by 10. That is generally the format we'll work in. So again, it's a landscape, so the bigger number should be the width. DPI, we're probably never going to print this, but you never know. You want this to be a minimum 150 because then it's kind of in the middle. But like I said, it's always best to go with the higher resolution. So I'm going to make this 300. So again, inches, 10 by 8, 300 DPI because that's dots per inch or pixels per inch. And then while you're at it, you can name this last name, first initial, burger. That way when it downloads, it's automatically following the naming format. And I'm going to hit create. All right, so here is the space you have to work with, and you want to fill this entire space with your burger. Now, the main concept of this project is working in layers. We saw that presentation. So your background will always remain your background. We can edit this later. First things first, I'm gonna create a new layer by clicking the button right next to the trash can, and then I'm going to title it Bun 1. This is going to be the first layer of my bun, and I'm going to color pick a color for that bun, and you generally want to be in the orange family, somewhere over by the white, and that is where you'll get a nice bun color. Click OK, and then I'm going to grab my brush and use the bracket to make it big, big, big to fill the space. You can also use the slider bar or just type in a number. All right, so I'm going to use the bracket to make it fill the space. This is still too small. That's pretty good. So I'm going to click it over to the right because I'm going to leave some room on the left for a side dish later. So I'm going to click, and there is bun 1. All right, so bun 1 is done, and I'm going to make a new layer. Again, that's right down by the trash can. Click new layer. This is going to be your patty. Okay, so now the patty is going to be a brown color, okay, and it's going to be slightly smaller than your bun. Okay, so I'm just going to try to line that up and center it, and then there is my patty. So if you couldn't tell, we're going from an aerial perspective, so we're looking down onto the burger. All right, now this patty is kind of boring, so what I'm going to do is make my brush smaller and add some grill marks. So grill marks would be black. And I'm going to just click, press and hold shift, click, click, press and hold shift, click, click, press and hold shift, click, okay? And there are my grill marks. Now, the other thing you could do is if you grab, the dodge tool, make your brush bigger with the bracket. The dodge tool, I reversed them. It's actually the burn tool. That makes more sense. The burn tool makes it darker, like it's burning, okay? And then the dodge tool makes it lighter, okay? So this is the other thing that you could do to add some interest to your patty, okay? You can change, for Photopea, it's called exposure, so that will give you less of an intense effect, okay? So that's probably a little bit better for the burger. But you can click. You don't have to draw in lines. You can click, but it just gives you a little bit of texture to your burger. The more you go over an area, the darker it will get, just like if something were on fire and it burned longer, it would get darker because of the just like when you burn something, it would get darker. All right, so I've added my detail to my patty, and now I'm going to make a new layer, and this will be one of your first topping layers. So a first topping could be cheese, because I want a cheeseburger, okay? So simple way to make a square of cheese is to grab the rectangle tool, okay? And then you're just gonna drag and drop your cheese. All right, now I can shift this around later, so it's okay if it's not perfect, but I do like when my cheese melts over the edge a little. So the fill color is up here, so I'm going to grab that and I'm going to pick a nice yellow. If you don't like the color, then just double click and then you can kind of make it a little more normal. It still looks like neon gross cheese. Just keep fiddling until you get a color you like. That's better. Okay. So now you'll notice that there's kind of this very light blue outline around it. That is because it is a smart object. It is a vector shape. So you can see also the little square there. So before I can edit this, I actually need to rasterize it. Okay, so in Photoshop, it's smart. It will ask you if you want to rasterize it if I try to erase something. Okay, in Photopea, it just says it's not editable. So you need to be smarter than the program. You're going to right click and say rasterize. Now I can make my eraser bigger and I can give myself some Swiss cheese. And I'm just going to click and erase some dots for the Swiss cheese. All right, and that is the beauty of working in layers. I have not touched the patty layer because they're on separate layers. If I had the cheese on top of the patty, I would actually erase the patty so I would see the bun. If all three of them were on the same layer, I would be able to see the white background straight through, and that ruins the effect. Once you're done with your cheese, you're going to make a new layer, and this would be a good time for some lettuce. Okay, so now if you are not sure what lettuce looks like, Google is at your fingertips. Just go ahead and type in a reference image and look at all the lettuce. So maybe you could type piece of lettuce, and that might narrow it down, okay? Some key things you want to take away is it's kind of darker green on the ends, and then you've got the stalk in the middle, which is a very mint green, and then it's a little bit more yellow green in the center here, and it's got some veining going out. Okay, you guys will spend a lot more time focusing on realism. If you are someone who wants to be perfect, what I could do is actually copy and paste this. I don't know if you can copy and paste in Photopea. Let me see. Perfect. Okay, so it does work just like Photoshop. So I just copied it and I pasted it in. It pasted it onto the lettuce layer. So now I could Control T, but I have to use Option to free transform and make this bigger so it's more proportionate. And then I'm going to rotate and line it up onto my burger. All right, so that's good. So I've got my reference image, and the beauty of this is now I can just paint over it. So I'm going to make a new layer so that I eventually can delete this reference layer, and I'm going to color pick the green. So I just used the eyedropper and clicked, and you saw the color change. And now I'm going to use the brush and I'm going to draw the shape of my lettuce, okay? You don't have to be perfect because we're going to fill this in. You can always go and erase. You're not going to affect anything that's underneath it because we are working on new layers. So I'm having a little trouble here because the program is not letting me see exactly where my cursor is moving, but I'm just guessing. I'm just taking, the fact that lettuce is very organically shaped to my benefit here and just kind of going into it. So now that I have an enclosed shape, I should be able to just fill it in. Perfect. You want to give it a double click so that way it gets rid of this little halo line that's in there. So if I zoom in, you can see that line. If I double click, so I click a second time because I already clicked once. So here's clicking once. There's the line. Click a second time, it fills that in. Okay. The edge, if you look closely, sometimes gets a little rough though. Not too bad. It just changed a smidge. All right, zoom back out. This does not look like good lettuce because it's just all one solid color. So I'm going to check the eyeball there and get rid of that layer, and I'm going to find my center stock color. Okay, so now if you'd like, because I can't see because this is filled in, make a new layer. We can combine this stuff later. And I'm going to draw over the center stock here. So it's getting a little smaller, so I'm going to decrease my brush size as I go. And then I'm going to make it a little bigger and make it a little bigger down here. Okay. And then I would make my brush smaller. Again, I'm sorry, it's having difficulty seeing it, so you just got to work slow. I'm trying to go too fast. and then I'm going to kind of very quickly trace over. This color is getting a little bit too light, so then I can grab the eyedropper and pick a slightly darker green, and then I can go back and I'm just gonna kind of add in my veins. So I want to work where I can see my reference image, and then eventually I will click this eyeball and it will combine, okay? And then if I want these two layers to be permanently together, I'm gonna hit Control or Command E, and you would see the two layers merge. I'm gonna undo that because I'm not quite ready. Well, actually, I'm not gonna finish this, so I'm gonna merge them just so I can show you the next part. So if you grab your blur tool, then you can blur the edges just a little. In Photoshop, we have the mixer brush, which is what we'll use instead. But you also have the smudge tool, which will smudge your lines a little bit. So I barely clicked and dragged, okay? So this one just takes time to get to know. But I'm gonna undo that and then just barely click and drag. And it's just smushing the colors around a little bit, but it just brings them together. And you can try to go in different directions, but you have to work very, very slowly in small little pushes. All right, so this is something that's going to work better in Photoshop. So again, if you have access to the Creative Cloud via the school email, if you have a real computer, not a Chromebook, please go ahead and use that and download the Creative Cloud on it. All right, so now that I'm done with my lettuce, I'm going to go ahead and delete the lettuce layer, and I'm going to rename this one to be lettuce. When you are graded on this project later, I will be checking all of the layers and you are responsible for naming them. If you don't, I will take points off. Okay, after the lettuce, we usually have some tomato. So this is going to be a tomato layer. And again, you can go through the same process. Find a reference image, okay, and you can use it to draw. All right, so I'm going to just copy, paste it in, check what layer it went on. Gotta use the zoom tool. All right, so my tomato didn't paste. There we go. Okay, so now what I want to do is size it. Oops, I keep doing Control T. So it's Option or Alt, Control T. And then I can drag it bigger. All right, and I'm not too worried about how perfect it is. All right, so that's a good sliced tomato on my burger. Again, make a new layer, and then this will be your permanent tomato because I'm gonna eventually delete my reference image. All right, so again, color picker, grab that ring, okay? And then instead of tracing this one, because it's a perfect circle, pretty much, all I'm gonna do is make my brush that big, maybe slightly smaller, but I'm gonna try to make it as big, and I just dab, okay? So now when you look at the tomato, you'll notice that the interior of it is slightly lighter. So again, feel free to color pick, and then go back to your tomato layer, make your brush a little smaller, line it up. That looks pretty good. Maybe a smidge smaller. That looks good. And then I'm going to go back to look at the tomato, okay? Then I have more darkness, okay? So it's like I have another layer of the darker one, but it looks even more red. So I'm going to just go ahead and choose my own color on that one. And then again, make the brush a little smaller and click, okay? Ooh, that's really bright. All right, so now I've got the outer layer, the inner kind of pale, and then that really, they're like triangles. All right, and then inside is really light, but let's get this blended first. All right, so again, the mixer brush tool in Photoshop is way better for this. But for this one, you can use the smudge tool, and you're just going to kind of carefully take the pale color, whatever you want to call it, and kind of come in to form almost like a peace sign. So I'm just going to try to mix it and make it really organic, and this is going really slow, but you guys get the basic idea. It's okay if your edges get a little wonky because, again, a tomato is not always perfect, okay? But I'm just kind of moving in little bitty bursts and hoping that it smudges it just a little. The blur tool will also help because you want your edges to be a little bit more blurred together than super crisp, okay? And then the last thing I could do, because the smudge tool is taking forever, is just draw. So making my brush smaller is just draw those center spokes in, and then I can go back and add the seeds and everything. But again, you want to use your reference image to help you, okay? But that's the basic gist. When you get to class with me, I will show you more about the mixer brush. So right now, I would just try to plan when you're at home and try to just get the basic layers named, get them started, get the basic shapes, but then we'll really dive into the details when we're in class using Photoshop. Of course, if you're home using Photoshop, not Photopea, then go ahead and make each layer super detailed. All right, after we've done our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers together, you're on your own. Double check the rubric for project specs, but you're gonna end up with 10 toppings, okay? That does not include the bun or the patty. So you need 10 toppings. So right now we've done 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you need 7 more. Then you're going to add your top bun. Then you're going to have some sides. And I will give you a little bit more direction on the sides later, but you need plenty of time to now develop your toppings, fiddle with the tools, find your reference images, make sure you're creating each one on a new layer. If you don't, I will take points off, so you might as well delete it and start again. When you're done for the day, make sure you file, save as a PSD, and upload that to your Google Drive. Okay, so I saved, it's downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and click on my drive. I'm going to go to my digital art folder. And the cool thing is that I can actually just drag and drop it. But you guys can also go to New, File, Upload, and then find it from your downloads. Once you see the green checkbox, you are done and ready to close out.